so yummy. Mmm. Mmm. You normally see Robert on these videos. I'm Robert's better half. So today we're going to work on Thanksgiving dinner. Hi there, welcome to Twisted Tree Outdoors. Today is the Saturday before Thanksgiving, and there is always a huge food orgy, for lack of a better word, at our house. It pretty much starts as soon as the kids walk through the door to the moment they leave, and then I usually send them a whole bunch of food with them because we can't eat that much. So today I'm going to be working on the Southern cornbread chicken and dressing. So dressing is totally different than stuffing. You do not put it in a bird. So you have to start by, of course, making your cornbread, and that's what we're about to do now. Okay, so like I said, the first thing that you have to do in order to make your cornbread dressing is actually make cornbread. You want to make sure you have a really great cast iron skillet, because that's the only way to make really good cornbread. Also, I have always used a cornmeal mix for making cornbread. I am sure that if you're really old school, you could, of course, buy cornmeal and the baking soda, baking powder to make your own. I'm lazy. I like finding this, which is really hard to find out here on the West Coast because cornbread is not a big West Coast item. In fact, the only thing you can pretty much find out here is like your Jiffy cornmeal mix, which is sweet. Back in the South, we make cornbread that is not sweet, and we eat it with beans and turnip greens, collard greens, those kind of things, and put it on top of the cornbread. You can do that with Jiffy. It's just, it gives it a sweet flavor. So if you're wanting to make cornbread dressing, it can't be sweet. So eggs, got some eggs. I use both. You can use straight up buttermilk or milk, or you can use a mixture of both, which is what I like to do, plus a little bit of water as well. Now, you'll also need some bacon grease to make cornbread correctly. I'm just saying. So I always have some in the fridge from where we've made bacon, and I keep it for things like this and whenever I need bacon grease. All right, let's get started. What I like to do is, there's no science to this. I hate to say there's no measuring cups. It's kind of all about what, as my mom used to say, looks right. So I kind of compare the size of pan I have to how much cornmeal I put in my bowl. If I'm making a small, then I get a smaller bowl, of course. So to kind of give you what I mean, this is my size pan, and that's about the size or amount of cornmeal mix that I put. So I kind of compare the two. So now you're going to use an egg and your milk. And like I said, I like to mix the two and even put a little bit of water. Once again, there is no science to this. It's until it looks right, the right consistency. And what I mean by consistency is you want it to be pourable. You don't want to have to literally scoop it out. It should pour from the bowl. And it's all about how you like it to taste. Some people use just regular milk and only regular milk. Buttermilk tends to make it a little more moist of a cornbread. Just a little bit more, and a little bit of water so that we get that consistency that will pour out of the bowl. All right, so I got it the consistency that I want. So now I'm going to take the bacon grease that I have and put a pretty healthy size into the cast iron skillet and melt it, because you're actually going to put some of the grease into the mix. Now we've gotten it the consistency we want so that it actually still moves around and will pour out of the bowl. So now we're going to heat up our bacon grease into our cast iron skillet. I have melted that bacon grease. Now you do not want to pour all of the bacon grease into here. You want to do about maybe half, because you still need the bacon grease over here to grease your pan. So we're going to do about half. And we're going to mix that up. Now while we're mixing that up, I'm going to put this back on the stove, because you're going to pour this in here and put a crust on this before you ever put it in the oven. All right, here we go. So you can see it's pourable. My grease is hot, or getting hot. You want it to be able to pour into the pan and then just spread it around evenly. Now, we're going to let it sit here and actually see the grease come to a bubble. That's putting that nice hard crust on your cornbread. So right now I have the temperature on high because we want to get this hot as quickly as possible. I really should have gotten my grease a little hotter before I even poured the cornbread in here. Not that it's going to ruin anything, it won't. But as you can see now, it's starting to bubble around the edges. I'm starting to see it all the way around. You want to make sure it's pretty even. Sometimes I'll even slide the skillet across a little bit so that this side gets it. It's a little harder for it to get to that side. Now I've got it all bubbling. That's what's going to put the crust on there. And we're going to take it to the oven. I've got the oven set at 400. And you want to check it in about 15 to 20 minutes and see how it's looking. We have finished the cornbread. This is what it should look like before you go and pull it out of the stove. You want a nice crisp golden top. When you turn it out, it should be a nice caramel brown color. Now, I will tell you, sometimes you go to flip out the cornbread and it won't turn loose. This is one of those times that doesn't matter, because you're going to crumble it up anyway. But luckily, today, it came out beautiful. Before we do that, though, I'm going to pull the chicken. I'm going to set this off to the side here. What I do is I always just go to the local big box store, warehouse store, because they have the bigger chickens. And get the rotisserie chickens. And the reason I do that now, I'm sure my parents, my mom, I'm old enough, they would just put a whole chicken in a pot and stew it all day long until it fell apart. They would use the liquid also as their broth. Of course, I've never done that. and I never will unless things get really bad. So I buy the rotisserie chicken. First of all, it has a lot of really good flavor. It's really moist, and it seals in the flavor of the chicken. And then I just use can or box chicken broth for the dressing. All right, so I probably should have also mentioned you see two different cornbreads here, and I've already pulled one chicken. I should have mentioned that I'm doing a double recipe. I always do a double recipe, whether I send it home with the kids at their request, or I save it and freeze it for Christmas. So because I have so much stuff here, and I'm sure you're wondering why I have so much, we'll make sure that the recipe for just one batch of Southern cornbread dressing is in the description below. I usually start by taking the legs off. I actually do not use the legs in there because they usually get eaten by someone. I'm not going to name any names. So I'm just going to pull that off, set it off to the side. Literally, you can just pull it apart. Now, what I usually do, though, is take my knife and run it right along this bone just to kind of break it loose, because it makes it a whole lot easier. And I just pull it apart as I'm putting in here. Later, I will chop this a little smaller, but not too small. You still want chunks to be seen and be able to not have it shredded. So I have pulled both of the chickens, and like I was saying before, we're going to give it another little chop, but you don't want to cut it too small. You want it, you know, in a bite-sized piece. This is also really great chicken to make chicken salad with. I use this to make the chicken salad. I do a grape and celery pecan chicken salad. And, yes, world famous. And I use this chicken as well. Like I said, I like that it stays really moist. It's got a lot of juices still left in it. Now, growing up, we would go to family Thanksgiving, family dinners, and they would make a giblet gravy to pour over dressing. I never acquired a taste for that, so we don't do it. But you're more than welcome to look up recipes for giblet gravy and pour over it. All right, so the chicken is all cut up, ready to go in the dressing. So the next step is to saute onion and celery. This is like a really big onion and a small onion, so 2 medium onions. And this is a whole stalk of celery. Like I told you before, I'm making 2 recipes, maybe even 3. It depends on how I divide it up, but it's definitely a double recipe. The trick to this, as with any really good Southern recipe, is lots of butter. So we're going to take butter and saute our onion and celery. So we'll get started. All right, so as you can see, I am starting out with 3 blocks of butter and the biggest cast iron skillet that I have. Thank you, Robert. We had to work a little on this one, but it's getting there. This one is my favorite. It's nicely seasoned. I'm trying to get this one to look like that. We'll get there. So I get that melted. I kind of equate making cornbread dressing to when people make tamales. It's so much, To me, it's so much work and so much prep that you want to make a whole bunch at one time and you can freeze them for later. I usually use this time to crumble up my cornbread. So we'll let this sit here and get warm and start kind of getting translucent. And we'll walk over here and I'll show you how I crumble up the cornbread. There we go. There's the other one. So I'm going to set that over here. So literally this, you're just going to get your hands in it. They're both in here and you just start crumbling them up. You will also need saltine crackers. We're going to crush them up really fine with a rolling pin, and that's going to go in here as well. Okay, so I did end up adding another stick of butter, and I wanted to show you just kind of the consistency. Some people like theirs not done as much as this, but I like mine to be more translucent and a little softer. So that's the consistency that I cook them to. And now I'm just going to add it in to the cornbread. This is really heavy, so I'm going to, yep, thank you, and dump it in. It's hot. All right. Sit that over here. So now is to add, and a lot of people also use white bread and crumble up in here. I never have. I just use the cornbread and the saltine crackers. And lots of chicken broth. Now this one's already been opened, so it only has maybe a fourth of it left. So I'm going to finish it up. And then I'm going to use definitely all of this one. So this is number 2 of 4 cups. Let's go ahead and add some chicken. Right now that's probably about a little more than half. And how I judge how much chicken to put in is once you get it mixed in really well and you pick up your spoon, you want to be able to see the chicken, but you don't want it to be overpowering because you want the dressing to be more than the chicken. A little more. I think I'm just going to go ahead and finish that one up. It really does soak in. So now that's probably, let's see, 8, 9 cups close to. Like I said, we're gonna look, and you can really see chicken, 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 so I don't need to add any more chicken. It's got plenty of chicken in it. So we will use that chicken for something else. So I have 2 different kinds of poultry seasoning, and I actually use both. Because this one, let me open it up and show you, is a little more coarse. It's more leaves. Whereas this one, whoops, this one is a powder. So I like using both. So what we're gonna do, and I don't like sage, so I don't use sage. I know, everybody out there right now is flipping out. So this is a tablespoon. And I'm going to mix the 2 and kind of get a little happy with it and kind of round it over. We're also going to do some pepper. I would say maybe a teaspoon of pepper. Salt. And now let's stir that in. And this is a lot, so that's probably nowhere near enough poultry seasoning. But we're going to taste it here in a second. And since there's nothing, no raw egg or anything in here, totally safe to taste. All right, I think I've got it pretty well stirred in there, so let's give it a little taste test. It's pretty good, but I'm going to add just a little bit more, not even a whole tablespoon. Probably about half. All right, and it's still just a tiny bit too thick. I'm not going to put a whole lot more, maybe a cup, half a cup to a cup. So this is kind of the consistency you want, kind of a really soupy, easy to stir. When you spread it around, you kind of still see some wetness. That's the consistency you want when you go to pour it into your pan. Because of course you're going to bake it and it's going to cook out a lot of that juice. So because I take this and I freeze it and then I pull it out for whatever Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever meal we decide to have it in, I don't cook it right now. I leave it raw, even though there's nothing in here that's raw. So I put it in these metal aluminum pans, and I have the covers for it. And I pull it out whenever we need it, let it thaw out, usually overnight, because it's pretty frozen, and it takes a whole lot longer to cook. So what I will do is, like Wednesday night before Thanksgiving, I will take it out of the freezer and put it into the refrigerator, let it thaw out overnight in the refrigerator. The morning of Thanksgiving, I take it out, I sit it out on the counter, let it finish thawing out. Then around noon, because we usually eat around 3, around noon, that's when I put it in the oven, let it cook. Okay, so I have already sprayed some oil in these pans, and I'm just going to spoon it over in here. So I want about 1.5 to 2 inches in the pan, and I spread it out, flatten it out, and there it is.
Thanks for watching.
So, the amount that you saw made 3 of these and this small one. And this is the one we're gonna stick in the oven and go ahead and bake so we can show you how it comes out. So I have the oven on 350, and we're just gonna put it in here for about 20 to 30 minutes with the tin foil on the top. Then you wanna uncover it and cook it for a little bit longer so it has a nice little brown crispiness to the top. We have finished the Southern cornbread chicken and dressing. It's soft, moist. That's the consistency that you want. Yum, yum. And if you look, you can actually see the chicken. There you have it. Southern cornbread chicken and dressing. It's hot, fresh out of the oven. So yummy. Mmm. Mmm. Rural area. You can cut this. So because I'm doing a double recipe and you're probably looking at going, holy crap, that's a lot of stuff. We will put the, okay, cut. You don't make me laugh. We'll make sure. Stop it. They're gonna probably say, she is so doing that wrong. But I think what we have to remember is that everybody has their own way of doing things, and
You don't care.
I don't. This is what I like. This is what my family likes. So this is my recipe, and this is how I do it. Now, by the way, these are some really great knives. I'm not going to tell you what kind they are, but if you want to know what kind they are, because I'm not going to advertise for anybody.
It starts with an I, ends with an A.
I've been told I can't advertise for anyone, but if you would like to just send us a quick note, say, hey, what kind of knife are you using? Because they really are good. I'll be glad to tell you.